You're not there yet, Michael. I see what I did though in this welcoming that I just offered. Okay, um, I didn't turn the recorder on. Now the recorder should be on. Yes, we are on, and I just want to say that repeating that because we are in such a battle for the hierarchical form of government, which is democratic, as opposed to the Shambhala form of government, which is spiritually monarchic, we have a lot of work to do because if we are not careful, the lower ego of people, of leaders, is released. They begin to think of themselves not as servants of the people, but as those whom the people must serve. I guess it's a tendency of certain first-rate types to think that way. And we have to do something about that. We work from the inside and we use the spiritual tools we have been given. So let us together, at least as we begin some rather abstract studies, still, as we have been doing, use great invocation number 2 at the beginning of our work, and probably a great invocation number 3 when we reach the end of this work today. Let the Lords of Liberation issue forth. Let them bring succor to the sons of men. Let the rider from the secret place come forth, and coming save. Come forth, O Mighty One. Let the souls of men awaken to the light, and may they stand with massed intent. Let the fiat of the Lord go forth. The end of woe has come. Come forth, O Mighty One. The hour of service of the saving force has now arrived. Let it be spread abroad, O Mighty One. Let light and love and power and death fulfill the purpose of the coming One. The will to save is here. The love to carry forth the work is widely spread abroad. The active aid of those who know the truth, of all who know the truth, is also here. Come forth, O Mighty One, and blend these three. Construct a great defending wall. The rule of evil now must end. And as I have been saying, what we are attempting to do is to make sure that the rule of evil, which basically is, as we understand it in humanity, human selfishness, does not re-establish itself as it has at various times in the past. we can no longer afford that happen, because we still are, we now are really in the position where we can bring the race of humanity to an end and have to start all over again, as the Tibetan warns us. We can only hope that that what Foster Bailey said in the early 1950s in one of his books, was it Changing Esoteric Values or Running God's Plan? One of those books, that the Tibetan had assured him that there would not be an atomic war. Well, we don't know. But it is possible that a war which involves Shambhala and the whole religious situation could be fought out, and that would be unique, something very new and very dangerous. So we continue to work behind the scenes to help the mighty one coming forth, to help the rider from the secret place, who is the Kalki avatar, who is at this time the one we know as the Christ, to help wield this saving force consisting of the three major aspects of divinity. One day soon we'll have to have a webinar where we actually study what the Tibetan has said as he's analyzed this particular mantra. And the death involved here involves the sixth formula. We find that in Discipleship in the New Age, Volume 2, and it's the death of certain thought forms which characterize a particular age. They have to be dissipated or relegated to a position of relative non-consequence, and new principles have to take the place of the old. We have to die to the tendencies of the old age while harvesting the good that has come from living through that age. There have been values, of course, as we have lived through the age of Pisces with its accompanying sixth ray cycle. And of course, with Pisces, we always have the second ray as well. So everything needed is present, and more disciples are needed to align with the intentions of the Christ and of the hierarchy, so that his emergence and the emergence of the hierarchy can take place without delay. The Christ knows the time and the hour, but it's more of a condition of the energies within humanity and within the planet that will allow his reemergence, his reappearance. And it's not up to us to be saying the hour will be thus and so, but we still do have about a century of retreating, or maybe the forces themselves are retreating into latency. Those forces being of the sixth ray, bringing in the sixth ray souls, and also the energies of Pisces. By the year 2117, that will be concluded. We are advised. Okay. So let's see what I have here. We just have a little bit to finish up here. I think it's program 34 that we're starting today. I don't know. Michael usually keeps me straight on that matter. But we are on page 44, just at the beginning of 45. And you know, these programs will be found on Makara, and increasingly they will be found on our YouTube channel, the Moria Federation Esoteric Education. So we're thinking in, you know, cosmic terms right now. And let's see. I just want to, okay, that'll do. When now, you know, get the names straight, the primordial ray, when the primordial ray of intelligent activity, the divine ray of intelligent love, notice how the word intelligent is always being used, which has something to do with the origin of these forces from the causal body of the solar logos on the cosmic mental plane, on the first subplane of the cosmic mental plane. So let's get that down. The idea that the causal body and the projection of this cosmic solar angel that tends to the evolution of our solar logos, that causal body is found on the first sublevel of the cosmic mental plane. And DK, you know, has a kind of a diagram here of it, and you see right there. I hope I'm showing that to you correctly. Right there, that triangle is considered to be, just imagine, a causal body for a huge being like a solar logos, and an entity coming from where we don't know. But obviously, if it is analogous to our own solar angel, then it was once a solar logos before. In other words, our solar angels, for the little human being, were human beings in the previous major solar system, and then had been trained to supervise the upliftment of human beings. It's all, you know, it's always this kind of occult chain of elevation. I forget exactly what it's called, but it's the idea that you grip the hand above you, and at the same time you grip the hand below you. It's an occult chain of elevation, and it has a specific name, which I know, but all right. So anyway, here, that would mean analogously that there was a being, if this is holding true to form, that was a solar logos, has been trained in certain still higher capacities, and is supervising the development of our own solar logos. Now, we don't know whether the intervention of solar angels occurs as a speciality or whether it's a general type of process, but I do remember the Tibetan speaking of this greater being. And probably this greater being comes from the cosmic ethers and has projected itself into the lower 21 cosmic subplanes, just the way our own solar angel does, but with concentration mostly on the higher mental plane for us and on the higher cosmic mental plane for the solar logos. Well, you know, we have quite an adventure lying ahead of us. And if what Blavatsky has told us from the sacred Tibetan books is true, oh, then indeed we've been through this countless times, as there have been countless universes, as the great breath never started breathing. There was no beginning point. The human mind doesn't handle eternity in that aspect very well. It's very difficult for us to fathom beginninglessness. Maybe for me anyway, endlessness is easier than beginninglessness. But once again, we are creatively working out the potentials found within the absolute infinitude of the universe transcending deity. I call it, the absolute deity. It's not the absolute, but it is the absolute deity. Okay. Well, we're dealing with some of the larger issues of abstract mind in these, well, I can't really call them classes. They are lectures and discussions and opportunities to widen our point of view and begin to enter the realm of pure reason. I was a little shocked the other day when I ran into the implication that pure reason can be found within the abstract mind on one level, and on a still higher level on the Buddhic plane as part of Buddhi. So there are apparently two types of pure reason. Anyway, when the primordial ray of intelligent activity, the divine ray of intelligent love, and the third cosmic ray, that's all he'll call it really, because basically they're all cosmic rays, aren't they, of intelligent will meet, blend, merge, and blaze forth. The Logos will take his fifth initiation, thus completing one of his cycles. Now, if you use the law of analogy, what cycle would you expect that to be? See, now, in a regular class, I would pause and no, yeah, I mean, someone wrote, I think Jesse wrote, no, when I say beginninglessness, I really mean it. The always so factor, never a definite beginning of a cycle. You can, in the chain of infinitude, of infinite sequence, you can have starting points, and from a starting point you can reach in a sequential manner any particular point within that sequence. But when there is no starting point, then the human mind rebels. Anyway, the fifth initiation, thus completing one of his cycles. What cycle is that? Well, when a human being, I think it's legitimate to reason from the human being to the solar logos. As a matter of fact, when comparing the different types of atoms found in a Treatise on Cosmic Fire, which is the atom of substance, the atom man, the planetary atom, and the solar atom, those are the four that get the most attention, that when comparing them, I have found that there are more similarities between the human atom and the solar atom than there are between the human atom and the planetary atom, or at least more information is released. So for a man, when he takes his fifth initiation, a human being, mastership, that's the end of the human stage per se. We're told whatever rule it is, rule 6, and raised and initiations, one of those rules right around there, about the Chohans, we're told they are no longer men, as are the masters. Okay, then what happens to a solar logos after he takes the 5th initiation? It's an initiation of mastership along the solar logoic line, isn't it? And then for a human being, they go into this Chohanic state. And what is the analogy to the Chohanic state for a solar logos? Well, we don't know exactly, but maybe we can apply that sentence. They are no longer they are no longer solar logoi in the same sense. They are they have much more impression being made upon them from the solar logoic monad, just the way a human being who takes the 6th initiation of ascension becomes a human monad, completes some kind of cycle. Maybe it is so. Okay, now I guess I've asked a question here. Does DK mean the 5th minor initiation, which eventually will be followed by the 3rd cosmic, and finally the 4th cosmic in this system? Or does he mean the 5th greater initiation, which is a cosmic initiation, and is not the 5th in a present series of 9 in which he is now engaged? All that sounds a little complicated, but basically I think that we're talking about the 5th cosmic initiation, which makes a solar logos a master in his sequence of initiations. Now that's so far beyond our masters that in a way we don't even know what we're doing talking about it, but we might as well, because this kind of study is meant to expand the abstract mind, just as it will be done during the next 2,000 years under the 6th subray of the 5th root race. And then the 6th root race will begin. Okay, now if the 5th initiation is a greater cosmic initiation, rather than just turn to page 384 of Cosmic Fire, and you'll see about the sequence of 7 planetary initiations and an implied sequence of 9 solar initiations. You'll see what you'll basically see, and what's important, and it is so even for a human being, is you'll see greater and lesser initiations through which a being will pass. There are even, before we begin to take the monastic initiations as a human being, the first of which is called the birth of the Christ in the heart, there are other and lesser initiations, which introduce us a little bit to the idea of the group and so forth. We can find that later in Cosmic Fire as well. And between the first and the second human initiation, I'm sorry, we will find initiations of fire, earth, air, and water. They are lesser stages. Now, I'm not sure about the sequence. Maybe it's earth, water, fire, and air, something like that. But there are lesser initiations and greater initiations. And our initiations 1 through 5 are considered the great monastic initiations. And even though initiation number 1 and 2 are considered for the human being to be initiations of the threshold, they are preliminary. They are not true major initiations. In another way, they are part of the greater series of 5 monastic initiations, 1 through 5. Now, true initiation for the human being ends up being the 3rd. And our solar logos has not even taken his 3rd true initiation the way Sirius has. See, there's hierarchies of all these beings, human beings, solar angelic hierarchies. There are planetary hierarchies. In other words, by that I mean there are rankings in the development of planets. There are rankings in the development of solar logoi. And we could just go on. When we have cosmic logoi, which are more like constellations outwardly, we have rankings. They are at different stages of development. So if we want to become, or at least know a little bit about, esoteric cosmology, then we will take these rankings into consideration. Even our local amazing being, so amazing that we just have to call it the unknown, one about whom not may be said. There are rankings in those beings too. And rankings, the principle of hierarchy prevails, rankings among the galaxies. Imagine that. So there's plenty to keep us busy as we, I'll use words which really don't make sense, but journey back to the top of the universe, up, down, sideways, we return along our emanative line. So anyway, will this great mastership of our solar logos take place in this solar system or in the next? And, you would say, well, what have I to do with that? I mean, well, our planet has something to do with that. How well the base of the spine center, which our planet is, how well it develops and how rapidly it develops, how completely it develops, because that will help to determine whether or not the solar logos can take his initiation of mastership. Now, do we have anything to do with how our planet develops? Well, we do. Of course we do. Humanity has its role to play, and we have our role to play within humanity. So, regardless of how vast this picture seems to be, some responsibility actually does devolve upon us. And is there a reference here from page 590? Perhaps. I'm trying to see if I can get down here. It says here, the 3rd fire, along with the other 2, make the necessary 5 of logoic evolutionary development. Now remember, we don't split the 3rd fire into upper and lower until probably the next solar system. The 5-pointed star remains our symbol and the symbol of initiation. Perhaps in the next solar system, it will be the 7-pointed star and will represent the fact that this 3rd fire has been split on the monadic plane into a higher and a lower. So anyway, the third fire, along with the other two, this third fire, it's a cosmic fire of intelligent will, make the necessary 5. Why necessary? Well, of logoic evolutionary development, because, we really are supposed to take the 5th logoic initiation in this solar system. We are supposed to do that. Now, whether we will or not, do you accomplish everything that you want to in one life? Maybe not. And even a great being like the solar logos might not fulfill that goal. The necessary 5 of logoic evolutionary development, and by its perfected merging with the other 2 fires. Now, perfected merging. Think about that. Your monad, your soul, your personality. Even think about Shambhala, hierarchy, humanity. A triangle is attempting to merge. A number of these triangles have to achieve some kind of perfected merging. By its perfected merging with the other 2 fires, as the evolutionary process proceeds, is seen the goal of a logoic attainment for the greater cycle or period of this solar system. And, I've wondered, is it a major, is it a minor initiation? Those things are not so important. What is important, I think, is that a kind of mastership can be reached in this solar system. And, but not the 6th cosmic Chohanic initiation, no. Whatever might be called the ascension. See, I'm working with analogy, right? Whatever might be called the ascension initiation, as it exists for a man, a human being, does not take place in this solar system. It must be deferred until the next solar system. And maybe too, in the 7th solar system, however that takes place, mysteriously in the eternal now, a kind of 7th climactic initiation for our solar logos will occur. Let's see if there's something here. I know I can't get into every little thing. That's, I would be guilty of, what you call ridiculous entirety, right? Meticulous entirety is the way Master DK approaches many things, but you can carry it too far, especially when you don't know what he knows. Okay, so there is something rather interesting here, speculatively. The first, I'm not quite sure what the SS means here, maybe solar system, probationary initiate, initiations 1 and 2. The initiator is the cosmic correspondence to the Christ. What would that be? See, the Christ is our first initiator. I guess this means solar system. And if I press the button, what happens? Yes, it turns out to be solar system. So in the first, but I should include the word major, because there were solar systems before initiations began to happen. So in the first major solar system, we might be looking at what's called the probationary initiate. And that would be on the level of these, of the high beings like the solar logos. In the second solar system, they would be initiations of the soul. Now, what is it for a human being? For a human being, the initiations of the soul are initiations 3, 4, and 5. And we're right in the, well, no, I think, no, it cannot be said. It cannot be said the way I am saying it, because it's, well, no, maybe it can be. We have not yet reached initiation 3, 4, and 5. The question would be, did the solar logos come into this solar system as an initiate of any degree, or simply as a personality? Well, that will have to let ride for a while. The initiator in this case, because look, the solar logos himself has an initiator, so the analogy would be the initiations of the soul for a human being are given by Sanat Kumara. What is the cosmic correspondence to Sanat Kumara? And, maybe it is Sirius somehow. And then in the third solar system to come, initiations of the spirit monad, at least initiation 6. And the initiator then is the correspondence, planetary correspondence, to the silent watcher, who is above Sanat Kumara. Sanat Kumara is an emanation of the silent watcher. And then comes the possible 7th initiation, but probably not a material solar system. So it seems that there will be at least 6 tangible solar systems, and we are in solar system number 5. Now, we say so often this is the second solar system that we could get confused. But this is the second major solar system and the 5th in the series. All right. And here is the statement that gives us that from Cosmic Fire, page 605. The 5th Mahamanvantara, and we're using that word to represent the duration of the entire solar system, some 311 trillion, 40 billion years, objectively and subjectively. The 5th Mahamanvantara solar system, the solar logos, achieves his 5th major initiation, and there's the hint. That's what we want. The word is major. So now we've answered our question. It's not a minor in a series. It's one of the great cosmic initiations. So what are we going through now? There will be a crucifixion on a solar logoic level. And that will be the 4th major initiation. But in a strange sort of way, there is a lesser crucifixion going on now through our own little planet. So not only is our planetary logos going through a subsidiary 4th initiation, and we're all going through the pain of it, page 384 of Cosmic Fire, but on our 4th planet, Vulcan, Mercury, Venus, Earth, our solar logos is going through a kind of chain initiation, a subsidiary initiation, and that's a double emphasis of suffering upon our little planet, which deals with the pairs of opposites, the rending of the pairs of opposites and their harmonization. So we have a difficult condition. Interesting, isn't it, that the symbol for the earth, a circle with a cross in the middle, is the same symbol often used for the base of the spine. And maybe when the base of the spine is really waking up, there's a lot of suffering on the rending cross that is simultaneously occurring. Well, here we are. We measure time in a funny way, and we think in very human terms, but when we start to think in cosmic terms, we are at a very important juncture. Humanity moves into the fifth kingdom of nature. A great 250,000 year cycle has recently been completed. It involves the central spiritual sun, namely the Pleiades, and our planet itself. There's this discussion about global warming and whether it's man-made. Well, obviously man is contributing to the severity of it, but things are heating up at the base of the spine, which is what we are in the solar system. And a lot of these great demonstrations of hurricanes and typhoons and fires and all of that have something to do, how could we say what it is, with the initiatory process through which our planetary logos is passing. Okay, and then we had, no, I'm not going to go back to that. And I'm trying to figure out why we had this discussion. Basically I taught these classes and gathered the various things that were said in them, and I made notes of my own, and then what the group was offering. Saturn, Mars, and our Earth, it says, constitute in a curious esoteric manner, so how far can we go, the personality of a stupendous ray life, whose energy is that of the third ray. This is in esoteric psychology too. Would you expect to find this in a psychology book? Uranus, Jupiter, and Venus are similarly allied in order to manifest or express a great ray life. He's hinting, and it's obviously ray 2. Jupiter and Venus have loads of ray 2 connected with them. Jupiter's soul, Venus monad, ultimate monad, and Uranus, believe it or not, is in a ray 2 line of expression carrying energy from Sirius. And that I haven't figured out, why Uranus particularly, being the dramatic first ray, seventh ray planet that it is, should be associated with the second ray. So, yeah, there is a great third ray being, and if we're going to look at who these beings really are, we can go back here to this diagram, and no, that's actually the wrong one. I'm sorry. It should be this diagram. And we're talking about cosmic sub-logoi. They are in their development between the planetary logoi and the solar logos. And this green one here, these interlocking squares, there's so much occultism in this diagram, my goodness, is that great third ray being that includes Saturn, Mars, and Earth, and then the second ray being includes Uranus, Venus, Jupiter, or Uranus, Jupiter, Venus. I'm not quite sure of the order in which we should take them. But anyway, there is a slightly different way of putting these three subsidiaries in relation to the solar logos than there is when we put the Buddhas of activity in relation to Sanat Kumara. There are three esoteric Buddhas which are not given, and you begin to wonder if there are somehow three additional esoteric whatevers connected with the solar logos in addition to these interlocking three. But maybe that's just, kind of an aside and of interest. With cosmology of this kind, you never know as you begin to study what tiny piece of information may be a eureka for you, Who was it, Pythagoras, who is said to have said, eureka, I have found it, and we have our little eurekas. When we study these books, they are connections of light. Light flashes forth between two pieces of information, and then we're on our way to developing pure reason. All right. Is there something else that I need to discuss here? The question is, do I need to discuss any of this? But I think it does help. At least you get my interpretation of it, and your interpretation may be different. That's fine. At this stage, none of us really has ascertained the truth. Certainty. We have not ascertained the truth. So when we think about what that other first ray great being might be, who is a subsidiary of the solar logos, we can call it Shiva, calling the other two Vishnu and Brahma. And maybe Shiva is connected in this way with Neptune, Vulcan, and Pluto. And of course, this is speculation, but Neptune is the god of reasoning, says Blavatsky. Now, it wouldn't be the reasoning of the kind that we normally think of. It's a transcendental mind. Vulcan can be related to the heart of the sun, as we're told here in esoteric astrology, which is shocking. Vulcan has so much first ray, but if you begin to look at it monadically, it has more the fourth ray. It's the great artisan in metals and, hard things. It's the fashioner of the jewels. And it is very close to the sun and represents, in some strange way, the heart of the sun. So it's a first ray planet, but it has a second ray connection. And Pluto would probably be physical then, the god of the underworld. Shiva holds the trident, which is Neptune. So you see what I'm trying to do here? Maybe it's not obvious. What I'm trying to do is figure out what of our normal planets are controlled by this red circle. This red circle is a great subsidiary logos. It may not be as powerful as the solar logos or as developed, but it's an aspect. It's the father aspect. And maybe the planets, which have not been mentioned, namely Neptune, Vulcan, and Pluto, all of them with their very destructive capabilities can be associated with this red circle. And as far as Mercury goes, I feel it is basically the communicator between all of the three, and doesn't belong in any one of them per se. At least that's my present hypothesis. Okay. Now, let's see where we are here. So we call that maybe Shiva. And if we look at Vishnu, maybe it's Uranus mental, Venus astral, and Jupiter physical. Jupiter does have a very powerful seventh ray connected with it. And Venus has a monad which is on the sixth and second ray. Of that, I'm quite sure. And then Brahma is the green circle. And DK gives us this much: Saturn mental, Mars astral, Earth physical. So that assignment is confirmed. Well, what good is this? Well, you're learning a little bit about the organization of the solar system, which has in it deities which are not planets per se, nor are they the solar logos. They are something else that require each of them 3 planets through which to express. Now, this is on the very high level of the superplanetary psyche, if I can call it that. We don't know whether the other ones are necessarily correct. It could be, Venus. It could be Uranus, Jupiter, Venus, because Jupiter has a second ray soul, and Venus is sometimes considered to be the ruler of the higher mental plane, you see. So we don't know the order here, but we do know that our planets in our solar system will each be supervised by a great entity, which corresponds either to Shiva, Vishnu, Brahma, or Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or whatever other trinity we might want to look at. And here we are, part of all this. And we have a long time as Earth years go to evolve within this system. And then just imagine leaving the system behind at the 9th initiation of refusal, when we say, okay, for now, I'm having nothing more to do with the cosmic physical plane. And then you begin to journey towards certain constellations. And then just imagine that when your education within those constellations is complete, some return to the place from which they left in order to serve, just the way the solar angels have returned. Okay, a little bit more perhaps here. The 5th initiation always completes a natural unit of work. Man takes his 5th initiation in the 3rd cycle of his development. Now, notice how I'm counting the cycles. Cycle 1, from individualization until the 1st initiation. That's a different way of counting. I could start with the 1st initiation and have different kinds of cycles. But cycle number 1, from the individualization until the 1st initiation. Cycle 2, from the 1st initiation to the 3rd. And when we study the chakras in Cosmic Fire, it shows us what happens in these cycles. And cycle 3, from the 3rd initiation to the 5th. And is this true of the solar logos? Yes, probably. Now, one way of looking at it, you see, it's up in the air, really. We don't know whether our solar logos will achieve mastership in this particular solar system. I'm saying here, he probably takes the 5th initiation in his 3rd incarnation by some accounts, or maybe the 6th incarnation, maybe that as well. So I read this before. The fifth Mahamanvantara, we're in it now. The Solar Logos achieves his fifth major initiation. Okay. Well, I see we're getting to that. Whoa. You know, what begins to happen is the same thing. I get a runaway computer, and it was starting to run away. So we'll just have to see. Yeah, okay. I hope that this does the job. Okay. It's a little bit detailed. I think we're right at the end of this particular document. And I'm just going to read what the Tibetan says in summary before we get into the document that takes up these fires again in a new way. Okay. Yeah, I've gone into quite a bit of detail here, and I think that maybe somehow in the course of things I've mentioned it. So I'll just read the summary paragraph and then it will take us into this one, which you probably can't see right now. And we'll begin next time with fire in the microcosm and so forth. But as you can tell, I'm really branching out as I discuss these matters with you. So it's not just that we are studying exactly what is written. We are trying to use at least the pure reason of the abstract mind to connect with relevant pieces of information which help us to see this cosmological picture in a greater degree of wholeness. So here is the summary paragraph. When the rotary, third ray, the forward, first ray, and the spiral cyclic movements are working in perfect synthesis, then the desired vibration will have been reached. Now, you know, if you have rotary motion like this, and you drive it forward, the combination of 1 and 3 gives you 2. Let's say we have rotary motion going like this, and then forward motion pushing the whole process, then the spiral results. It's another way of saying the father and the mother create the middle principle, or the son, only we're speaking in terms of movement. When now, and then now think of yourself here too. Think of your moon, your sun sign, your rising sign. Because one represents, or, you know, there's another way to think of it too. But let's just say your moon certainly represents rotary motion. And the rising sign, how does it say it? It's the driving energies of the rising sign. He uses that term, the driving energy. So he's associating it in this context with the first ray. So they yield together, the moon sign and the driving energies of the rising sign, the present intermediate condition represented by the sun, S-O-N, S-U-N, the sun sign, and the sun sign's progress. There are some magnificent words that he uses regarding the sun of probability, the sun sign, and the sun of possibility, the rising sign. And there are other ways of looking at that too, in terms of the triangle which exists between the sun sign, the rising sign, and the point opposite the sun sign. If we're advanced enough to be taking in anything from the monad, then the sun will represent the rotary motion. The point opposite will be the driving motion, and the rising sign will be the spiral cyclic motion. So there are many ways to interpret these different relationships. We can do it mythologically. We can do it in terms of motion. We can do it astronomically. Well, more astrologically, I would say. And that's why for the different types of people, there are just different ways to get into the secret doctrine. And we call these, the keys. We're turning the keys in different ways, right? What's your key or several keys? What's your way in? What's your way into the depths of the secret doctrine? Maybe, probably not in this group so much, but there are people who will turn the mathematical key. They will turn the astronomical key. They will turn I think we might call it the pracritic key. They will study matter minutely. Different rays do it different ways, So, from the psychological point of view, it's good to know that all of our brothers and sisters out there, they're not identical with us, but every one, once they reach a certain level of evolution, will be able to turn a key into the secret doctrine, which eventually will help our method, just as our method helps them. So when the rotary, the forward, and the spiral cyclic movements are working in perfect synthesis, your own monad, your own personality, your own soul. Of course, if you say your own too emphatically, it's really an illusion, but you know what I mean. You have a system, are working in perfect synthesis, then the desired vibration will have been reached. Now he's kind of summing it up here, the way a really good teacher does. When the three laws of economy, of attraction, and of synthesis work with perfect adjustment to each other, then nature will perfectly display the needed functioning right here on Earth, right? And the correct adaptation of the material form, the personality aspect, to the indwelling spirit, of matter to life, and of consciousness to its vehicle. So that's a magnificent summary paragraph talking about the perfection towards which we are aiming, but so is our planetary logos, so is our solar logos, and in a way, so is every little atom of matter, what we call matter force. And this happens in the other kingdoms as well, but in man there is a macrocosmic correspondence. Somehow we do reach the point where spirit can be conscious. So I think that's kind of the end of this. The solar logos becomes an adept. He can adapt. Correct adaptation is the result. And I've talked about the cosmic Chohan. And this kind of consummation, I want to emphasize, cannot yet be achieved in this solar system because we don't have enough development of the first aspect of divinity. But we're on our way, and just the way people like you and me are working on the soul aspect, there will come a time when monadic access and infiltration and expression is our major objective. And so it is for the solar logos as well, and for the other planetary logos and higher logoi and so forth. Okay, next time we'll get into a different document, and we'll work on the fires, which have to do, very much with our prana and with our latent fires of the body. This is the foundational part of the cosmic fire work. It's almost easier to deal with solar fire, but then, I'm taking a lot of side trips here and helping us get into those things as well, lest we just have to hang out in the realm of matter alone. We're not doing that. We're bringing a lot of things together into the picture, and hopefully the result of this kind of study, for however long it may go on, will result in a greater degree of what I would call spherical understanding. I mean, everything tends to become a sphere, at least in our system here, and our understanding must be a great sphere of interrelated points of light. We're trying to do that. Okay. So let's, if you have thoughts, questions, we can discuss them, and or other factors related to occultism in general, they too can be discussed a little bit.
Okay, Michael, we have a comment from Vicky in the chat box saying, this last paragraph is a good explanation of Uranian potencies, it seems. Simultaneous action.
You're right about that. In my view, Uranus, I always differentiate this. Uranus is the planet of simultaneity. Saturn is the planet of sequentiality. And Master Moria says that all of Armageddon is a battle between Uranus and Saturn. So through our intuition, with which Uranus has much to do, we try to grasp it all at once and see it in the wholeness. And through Saturn, we do the necessary slog work of studying part after part, piece after piece, until we can find a way to put them all together in a Uranian flash. And in the two types of pure reason that exist, I would say the first type related to the higher mind is Saturnian. And the second type, which we can find related to the intuition, getting it all at once, is Uranian. I think also Neptune plays its role there as well, as maybe the most important planet in this particular solar system. Next solar system, it'll be Uranus with its first ray monad, and the Earth with its first ray monad will play an important role as well. Okay. What else? Anything else?
No other things written in the chat box other than, Jesse earlier wrote that perhaps beginninglessness is isness, whether or not there is any intellect but isness to recognize it.
Oh, well, that's an interesting abstract statement. I better look at that. I don't think I looked at it sufficiently with sufficient clarity. Perhaps beginninglessness is isness. Yes, okay. Or at least it is characteristic of isness because isness has no beginning. Whether or not there is any intellect but isness to recognize it. Well, there we go. And the question is, does isness have intellect? And I would say, it's a perfectly homogeneous state. And the intellect arises within a various conditions. Intellect, will, love, they are all derivative of or derivative from isness. But it seems to me, that isness has no beginning and no end and no variation and no quality other than what it is. So I know it kind of goes over into the other class where we discuss these things specifically and not all the details that have arisen from isness as we discuss here. But, ponder on beginninglessness. Like I say, for me, it's easier to ponder on endlessness. I don't know why. Because maybe we have a kind of prejudice of mind that says, well, things can keep going and going and going and going. Yes, okay. And never stop. But everything to us, in terms of our imagination of what creativity is or creation is, has a starting point. And when we eliminate the starting point, then the concrete mind rebels against it. So the contemplation of beginninglessness can yield an altered state of mind, which, opens the door to the kinds of realizations that the concrete mind by itself, the intellect as we usually consider it, can never achieve. So, it's worthwhile to sit down with oneself and just repeatedly ask, what is beginninglessness? Can anything that might come to mind, any perception, any thought, whatever, ever, have no beginning? Or do all things have no beginning except for isness itself? And I would say that certain realizations might come up which are of interest and value and which can change our perspective. Okay, so we have, it looks like it's going on right here in front of me, Michael. Is this it? This Chohans are not men. They are no longer men, as are the masters.
We have a comment from Karsten before that.
Okay, okay.
Karsten writes, you say circular understanding. What with spiral dynamics?
Spherical understanding. And, well, with spiral dynamics, there is that constant ascent in our understanding, a constant widening of the spiral, and which is, embracing, inclusive. And also there's a tightening of the spiral, which is useful when it comes to understanding time, and DK kind of gets into that a little bit, how the spirals tighten towards the end, and how many things are achieved at the end much more rapidly than, for instance, in the beginning. And the development of our causal body seems to show that too. The earlier petals unfold very slowly, but each of them a little more rapidly, until when we reach the inner unfoldments, things are rapid indeed. And finally, with the synthesis petals, they all spring open at once. Burst open, I think, is what DK says. So in the study of timing, the spiral is very important. But when I say spherical understanding, I mean looking at the areas of knowledge as if they're all part of a great sphere of light, let's say, every area of knowledge interconnected with every other area of knowledge. And that's what I mean by spherical understanding. Everything is included, everything is related. And I would say it's kind of a combination of Jupiter and Mercury together. The inclusiveness is Jupiter, and the interrelationship of each to each and all to all is Mercurian. And notice that eventually, this is what completes the mutable cross. But I don't think that this can be achieved on the mutable cross per se. It's quite a high state that some of the masters on the second ray will be able to achieve and will want to achieve. So I might just say to anybody, well, what is your sphere of knowledge? And is that sphere of knowledge expanding in such a way that the interrelationships between its contents really are working out completely? And so basically you can get from any place to any place else. There's a pathway in this sphere of knowledge, this sphere of understanding. That's maybe adding another dimension to it if we use the word understanding, because it has something to do with identifying as the source of all that knowledge. I think DK really has that, and when he works with us, it seems to me to be very much on the third subray of the second ray. And it sets an example for us. Now you say, well, why do I study cosmic fire? Is it practical, Well, it is certainly increasing our sphere of knowledge. And it will make possible correct interaction with what we find within that sphere. It's on its way to omniscience eventually. And of course, it's possible eventually to be everywhere within that sphere. And then one's potency on the way to omnipotence, omnipotence, is also being increased, but that's more a condition for the next solar system. With spiral dynamics, I think, there probably is some kind of occult root at the bottom of it, and but I would rather stay with what the ageless wisdom presents in terms of planetary meanings, ray meanings, zodiacal meanings, etc. I think spiral dynamics chooses the different levels. At least it's aware of levels of human functioning. But I think to relate it to our solar system, our planet, our solar system, and our cosmos, we should stick close to the source, which I think is more accurate. This is my impression. Now, we have more. This is one of the things one has to look at, right? Vicky is saying.
Yeah, Vicky
go ahead.
writes, as you mentioned so often, Chohans are not men. DK says masters are a blending of the human and Deva kingdom. So then what evolution is a Chohan such as the Christ? DK mentions in esoteric astrology that there is a third evolution that is so spiritual high that we humans can't conceive of it. Are Chohans part of this hinted at third evolution on this planet?
Okay, I would like to, try to be simple about this and simply say that while Chohans are not members, no longer members of the human kingdom, they are the members, still members of the ninth or fourth creative hierarchy called the initiates. And the way I think I can maybe demonstrate, well, at least I can reference it. And it'll just take me a minute before I bring up the... Okay, so from a certain point of view, the Christ and all of the superior, masters superior to the fifth degree initiates are still members of this particular creative hierarchy of human monads. And let's just say that the Chohans are no longer limited by the realm of Brahma. Now, what might I mean by that is that the lower five subplanes of superhuman and normal human evolution are considered a limitation to a master who has taken the ascension and focused himself in the monadic vehicle. But he does not leave the human hierarchy, which is hierarchy number 4, or even number 9, if we count those other super hierarchies that he's given, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, 7, 8, 9. So the Christ, the Buddha, and all of those beings who are not yet members of the triple flowers, nor are they solar angels yet, are members still of this hierarchy of monads. But they've overcome the Brahmic, i.e. human, limitations of the lower 5 subplanes. I think that's what it means. There was more. Gosh, there's quite a bit more. And the blending of human and deva is even more complete on the monadic plane. And really, if we look at a planetary logos, there's a great example of the blending of human and deva, because they are called divine hermaphrodites, divine Hermes Aphrodite. Hermes is the man, Aphrodite is the deva. So the blending together of these two evolutions, while beginning and achieving a certain degree of completeness in the master, is, in my opinion, something that becomes even more fused as we rise through the initiations. So then what evolution is a Chohan, such as the Christ? Well, still members of the human hierarchy of monads called the initiates, I would say. And I'd have to see the reference here. There's a third evolution that is spiritually so high that we cannot conceive of it. I'd have to see the reference. So if you can find that, maybe I can make something out of it. There are 49 fires of Brahma. There are 49 second aspect fires. I guess they are ray fires. And there are the 49 spirits of darkness. Now, maybe those spirits of darkness that are monadically related, I think we're finding them in cosmic fire somewhere. It might be that third evolution, but I would just have to look at the context there, Vicky, to see, to be able to say anything about it, because I can't right now. I would just say that the monads that are members of the fifth creative hierarchy of solar angels, who have sacrificed so much, are a different group of monads than the monads in the hierarchy we call the initiates, or the human hierarchy. In other words, there is a distinction between the human kingdom and the human monadic hierarchy of initiates. And one can move out of the limitations of the kingdom and not move out of the containment of the fourth or ninth creative hierarchy. So provide me with the page, and maybe I can understand something.
And Tanya asked about the document that you're using in this study work, and I put in a link to Makara in the chat box for everyone for this particular document.
Right, and since I'm filling in other things, maybe I should provide for you the filled-in version, which has a few more references connected with it and some elaboration. On the other hand, if one simply looks at the video, of course, who has time for that, you might say, then everything that I've done is recorded right there. But the documents on Makara are the skeleton. That's what I did some 10 years ago or more, when I was studying cosmic fire meticulously, as meticulously as I could, and providing classes on the road for this study. quite a few classes really. But I've assembled more now, a little bit more anyway, and they are in the documents that I'm showing you. So we can work that out so that you can get and whoever wants can get a copy. We've done 2 documents so far, and there's a lot of them. Meanwhile, I would suggest following out what Michael says. Go to Makara, and you'll find all of these commentaries on cosmic fire, and only at the very end, the last 100 pages or so, did I switch from the written commentary to the video commentary, because it was just going to be too much, and I just had to try to finish it. So go straight to Makara, and you'll find everything there. Plus the first 2 documents I'll give to Michael, and maybe we can find a way to make them available to everybody for the additional factors that may be present. Okay.
We can make that happen.
Yep, sounds like it. Okay. Thank you.
Jesse writes in perhaps a clarification of terminology. Perhaps you mean in spherical understanding, synthetic understanding.
Well, I would say the 2 can be related, but I look at knowledge as a great sphere. It's my particular symbol, as a sphere of interrelated contents. And, rather than, and someone said, Karsten says, synthesis, yeah. Rather than the specialities and delineating these special areas within the sphere, you can get from any area to any other. And then I would call that an articulated synthesis, borrowing a term from music. When you articulate notes, they are separated one from another. They might be, staccato or marcato, or all those Italian terms. But they're not legato, tied to one another. So articulation has to do with the degree of separation, the degree of distinction. There are many items of knowledge which are apparently distinct from each other, but within the symbolic sphere of understanding, you can reach from any point of knowledge to any other point, and that's why I use that particular symbol of the sphere. And I can call it an articulated synthesis. There is a kind of synthesis in which non-articulation is emphasized. And it simply means that every item of knowledge is utterly the same in essence. That would be a non-articulated synthesis. So that's the best way that I can clarify its meaning to me. In other words, when we talk about infuception, rather than just perception, we're talking about a non-articulated synthesis. When we're talking about perception or the self-perception of the universal logos, we're talking about an articulated synthesis where everything is separate from everything else, but related. Okay. Anything else?
Another from Vicky. DK says someplace that with the development of the intuition, the student disciple will someday solve the time-space puzzle. Perhaps then we may understand beginninglessness. Also, DK writes that whereas now we can think about the past through memory and can currently understand the present, in the future, we will not be able to think about the past, but only be able to apprehend the now and the future. So then we certainly wouldn't be able to conceive of the beginning. These DK statements are very enigmatic to me.
Yes, yes. Obviously when we're dealing with these abstract issues, we've got to go to the actual statement, um, which would be helpful because, we all of us, we interpret what he says in various ways. So then we always want to have the reference before us when attempting to explore what it is. Now, what we're doing here is we're dealing with something called the eternal now, but remember that the third ray is the Lord of history. And we cannot entirely eliminate it. I mean, the whole, in the future, we will not be able to think about the past, but only able to apprehend the now and the future. I don't recall ever running into a statement like that. I know, for instance, third ray masters, and I would say that Blavatsky probably has a third ray monad and a first ray soul, and is now a master, at least according to Madame Roerich, has a huge grasp of planetary history. Now, and can think of it and detail it and read it as the record. See, the Akashic record is about the past. Of course, it's being done in the now. Let's just say we can deal with the past, we can deal with the future, we can deal with the present, all in terms of the eternal now. And yes, that is enigmatic. But I wouldn't eliminate the capacity to know the history of our planet or the history of our solar system, and some high being knows those things and can relate to them. But that same high being probably understands as well what is the eternal now that includes the past, present, and future. So for me, when I read here that we could only apprehend the now and the future, I would say to have a balanced statement, we could also apprehend the past, but all within the context of the eternal now. And the eternal now is a bit different from the momentary now. So we do get into the enigmas of time and perception. That's how it strikes me. And then, of course, again, if we can use the fifth ray to analyze specifically what he says, word for word, point for point, then we can communicate better on the matter, because probably different people will have different interpretations of what these particular ideas come from. So again, I would recommend gathering the references and exactly what he says, and then looking at the analysis of it from your point of view, my point of view, anyone's point of view, see what we think he's actually saying word for word. Now, with respect to beginninglessness, yes, I would say that when the intuition in the cosmic ethers is activated, we have a whole lot better opportunity to get the feeling for it, rather than what the concrete mind can deliver. So when the transcendental mind begins to work, which is on the Buddhic plane, these terms, which seem so, again, enigmatical to us, will become more realizable, more meaningful. And we do have to solve the time-space puzzle in order to be rid of illusion and really to take the third initiation, which begins a whole new series of initiations. So the overcoming of conventional ideas about time and space is a primary prerequisite, and we do that initially within the Buddhic realm. So the references, Vicky, and then we can look specifically. You can write me about the references that you have found.
Michael,
And, yeah.
The reference to the third evolution is in Esoteric Astrology, page 456.
What does it say?
It says, this tabulation may serve to make a little clearer the present general plan or blueprint of the evolutionary development of consciousness. Other developments are proceeding simultaneously, such as the responsive unfoldment of the form aspect and the evolution of the deva or angel line, which parallels the human and to which I referred in a treatise on cosmic fire. A third great scheme of evolution is proceeding, and that can only be referred to as the unfoldment of divine purpose on its own plane.
Yeah. It's a will unfoldment. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of this, humanity has as yet no faintest conception, because its consciousness is still held within the limitations of its own kingdoms in nature.
Mm-hmm.
The hierarchy is attempting to become responsive to this form of energy.
He talks about, there's a place where he talks about 100,000 million lives in the previous solar system, and 200, maybe 240,000 million. I'd like to be able to find that. In other words, it finally totals out to 600,000 million, billions of lives. And it's an unfoldment that has to do more with the next solar system, and maybe the hierarchy can somewhat anticipate a little bit about what that's about. But basically, the lives change. We have a duality now. We will not have a duality in the next solar system. I obviously, one wants to hunt for these things, and the word would be the necessary 600,000 million, something like that. But I don't want to, take time to when I might not be able to find it. Let's see here. If I can hit on it quickly, that'll be great, but otherwise, no. The necessary, let me see, yes, it's 600, 6 million. No, it's not going to be there. Necessary 6.
Try 6,000.
What is it?
6,000 million.
Did you find it? Yeah, well, okay. It is a reference where he looks at the lives of the previous solar system. 100,000 million? No, It's not. It's
Uh,
not
add
coming
a,
up.
add an E to 1.
Oh, okay. Let's try it. 100,000 million. Okay. Okay. No, that's not going to be it. And here it is. But I can see that I should not have written it in blue. It's very hard to see. And perhaps this tells us something about what those lives are going to be. I'm going to change it to a different color, and I'll change it to red. Okay, in the first solar system, there was one dominant evolution, and it consisted of 100,000 million monads. In the present system, the second, there are two dominant evolutions, the human and the deva. There are, as earlier stated, 60,000 million human monads. Add to this the feminine evolution of the devas consisting of 140,000 million, and you have the necessary 200,000 million. This elucidates my statement anent this solar system being a feminine system. And now our point. In the third solar system, the total number in evolution will be the needed. It's not necessary, it's needed. 300,000 million that perfection requires of the threefold logos. So I think that whatever lives they may be, they're different in every solar system. We would look at the third example here. And maybe, maybe there will be three kinds. I don't know. But anyway, we can examine and we can think about, and we can ponder this third statement. And by the way, the number 6 is considered a perfect number. And do we know why? Now, let me just make sure that you see it there. The number 6 is considered perfect. Why? Because 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. 1 times 2 times 3 is 6. So in the numerology of the Greeks, at least, it was considered a perfect number. And so we talk about the needed 300,000 million, which will make the needed or necessary 600,000 million all totaled for our solar logos. Yep, all right.
And we have a question from Ishtar.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on Vishnu with Uranus, Venus, Neptune combining instead of Uranus, Venus, Jupiter? What are the differences between Jupiter and Neptune in this combination?
Well, no, wait a second. Let me go back. I want to be able to see that because it's one of those questions that you have to look at. Let's see, here it is. Well, Uranus is definitely a first-ray monad. So its placement among these second-ray planets, I think, is in the right place. What are the differences between Jupiter and Neptune in this combination? Well, the monadic ray is the issue. And let's see, Uranus, however, Uranus, Venus, Jupiter goes along with the second ray, or Uranus, Jupiter, Venus. I'm still working that out. Jupiter with its second ray soul, Venus with its second ray ultimate monad. Jupiter may have a seventh ray monad, finally, in the submonadic level. But then there is the question of which one of the three will it finally have. It is Zeus, it throws the lightning, there is a connection with the first ray also, first and seventh, with Sol on the second ray. What are the differences? Now, wait a second, if I can understand. What are the differences between Jupiter and Neptune in this combination? Well, the Sol ray is different in both. Neptune has the sixth ray Sol, Jupiter the second. Neptune has a definite second ray monad, page 420, 421 in Esoteric Psychology, Volume 1. Jupiter most probably does not have a second ray monad. It has the second ray Sol. And, for that, Jupiter is also associated, interestingly enough, in the Secret Doctrine, as Brihaspati is the word that's used. And Jupiter rules an outer form connected with the ancestral gods. And Narada is connected with Venus, who fights with Jupiter. Now, you wouldn't normally think so because they both have such second ray. But Narada is more like Sanat Kumara, and he is the Lord of Venusian love anyway. So the Venus is associated more with the inner life, and from that point of view, Jupiter is associated with its exaltation in the very material, in one sense, sign Cancer. It's associated with tradition and all the things that keep the physical form going. So in that case, Venus Narada has a superior position to Jupiter Brihaspati. But it looks to me, we either have to place Jupiter or Venus one way or another, and there are justifications for doing either. Because Venus is associated with the higher mind, which is well within the realm of the dense physical body of the solar logos, but not Jupiter. Jupiter is associated with the Buddhic plane and with the love wisdom of the Buddhic plane. And so to put Jupiter in the second position is reasonable, and Venus in the third position, representing maybe the monastic permanent atom, with Earth being the mental unit. So unfortunately, there are different ways to turn this in different perspectives. Jupiter and Neptune in mythology are brothers, and they are both sons of Saturn. They are related, but I'm quite convinced that their monadic rays are different, and we certainly have been given the example that their Sol rays are different. Jupiter perhaps has more to do with divine patterning, and Neptune with, well, I don't know, there's some kind of association with this underlying pervasive being. Jupiter makes wholes, and Neptune is the very essence of that which is gathered together into a whole. There are distinctions between them. And it's a bit of a complex question, but Uranus, Venus, Neptune, I don't think so, because he gives us Uranus, Venus, Jupiter. See, he actually, on page 99, he gives us that, not Neptune. You found it, haven't you? I mean, let's just very quickly take a look. It's Esoteric Psychology, Volume 2, page 99, I think. Yes, here it is. Uranus, Jupiter, and Venus are similarly allied in order to manifest or express a great life. So they do belong together, and Neptune is left out of the picture. Sometimes, as a matter of fact, we're told that Neptune doesn't belong to our solar system at all. And other times it seems to be the most important second-ray planet monadically in our solar system altogether, as the higher octave of Venus. Venus has an ultimate second-ray monad, and Neptune has a definite second-ray monad called the esoteric ray. So there's no easy answer to it, but the combination is not Uranus, Jupiter, Neptune. It is Uranus, Jupiter, Venus. And one of those great beings works through Uranus, Jupiter, Venus, leaving Neptune with its association to pralaya, death, dissolution, connected with the first ray deity. And Neptune is not the sweet planet that we sometimes think of it, you know. There are factors there, but in mythology, Neptune is a pretty strong character, responsible for the great storms at sea and so forth. Maybe that has to do with astral storms and so forth, under the sixth ray soul of Neptune. Okay, is that it?
Perhaps going back to an earlier discussion, now includes all points, past and future, and it brings simultaneousness as Jesse understands it.
Well, the eternal, you know, in a way, let me get to that, you know, and see it, because here it is. Because some of these things that have to do with abstractions, you just have to see, you know. You see, here's the thing. When we deal with now, it transcends all possibility of division. The eternal now can allow no movement within itself, and movement depends upon division and what I've called articulation. The eternal now requires a homogeneous essence, which we have called isness or beingness or beingness. That's only when we perceive all things as illusory, but essentially this essence, can we have the eternal now. You know, because we're talking about infinite time past, infinite time future, all occurring in the now. We have to perceive all of those sequences, all of those extensions, backward, forward. You know, we understand we're dealing with the limitations of the concrete mind. We have to perceive the homogeneous essence, the absolute essentiality than which there is nothing else, the isness, in order to perceive the eternal now. This is my estimation. The minute you add number and deviate from the realm of no number, we have trouble in perceiving the eternal now. See, nothing changes in the eternal now. The essence never changes. So we need some kind of dual vision. We need to know that in the realm of Mahamaya, we see everything in flux, like Heraclitus said. Nothing is constant but change. And yet all that change is seen as illusory, And with Parmenides, non-movement, because there is no division. So when we have overcome number and enter the realm of zero, the eternal now is perceivable. And I think increasingly perceivable for ever higher and higher types of beings. I think humanity is just getting into that right now. But, you know, everything around you is positioned, it's numbered, it's moving, but is it? Is it really? Is movement real? Is division real? Or is division Maha-Mayavic? So basically, if you want the eternal now, there can be no division. And how do you perceive no division? Well, we learn how to infusive, and then there is no division. Perception just isolates one thing after another, which is why I gave that kind of interesting little exercise. I say, don't move your eyes. Keep your eyes steady. Don't move from thing to thing. Just grasp a gestalt and feel with the heart the essence beneath the apparent articulations. And if we can get into that, we can make that little flip that might bring us closer to the eternal now. We have a lot of concrete mental structures to overcome if we want to begin to perceive the eternal now. I think
And
maybe that, yeah.
Returning to the discussion on spherical consciousness, NASA suggests or questions holographic consciousness rather than spherical.
Well, okay, holographic is a good word, and basically holography gives us the law of analogy operating with approximation. Basically, there are archetypal arrangements, let me just say at the top of the pyramid, at the top of the universe, which are reflected ever more vaguely, analogously, as we descend through their reflections on lower planes. But when I say spherical consciousness, I do mean that, exactly that. Holography tells us that there are certain patterns which are found throughout the universe, and they become more and more vague as we descend, and sharper as we go into the realm of the archetypes. And they are important interpretive, it's an important interpretive method to think holographically. So I'm talking about the ability to relate all items of knowledge that the divine mind perceives. And I'm talking about the line of relationship between things that are apparently unrelated. I'm saying in the sphere of knowledge that I'm talking about, you can travel from anywhere to anywhere else and find the connection. So I think holography is another thing, and an important thing. It's an important structural method of patterning the universe. And we have to understand all of these reflections of the archetypes in their um, in their growing approximations to the original. And basically, in Cosmic Fire, he's telling us that. He's saying the atom is a holograph of man, a holograph of um, the planetary atom, a holograph of the solar atom, and so forth. All of these are approximations to the ultimate archetypal atoms that exist in the realm of universal purpose. So we can navigate via holography and via analogy. We can navigate, but we may never get as we always have to try to come closer and closer to the clear and pure archetype, which will clarify the sometimes blurred presentation of a lesser, of a holograph, let's call it. Things get more blurry as you descend. And the archetype is what we have eventually to understand. These are mental constructs that help us understand how to achieve pure reason. The pure reason of everything related to everything else. We're still very far from that, but you can practice it. You can look for points in common between quite different perceptions. And if you think deeply enough, you'll find something linking them in the realm of pure reason. So I would, for the time being, and from what I understand, I would leave holography as a great interpretive method akin to the law of analogy, bringing archetypes into expression on lower planes, but more vaguely than the archetype. And the sphere of knowledge, I would say, has to do with achieving articulated synthesis. That's the word I've been trying to use so far. Just try it, just as I say, hold up two things, here's a pitch pipe, here's a pen. We can go for the essence and find it to be the same, but we can also look for the mercurial connection between these two items. And we will find it if we think deeply enough. Okay, well, it is getting late now, so I think
there are no more written comments and no hands raised.
Well, then we'd better hasten to the great invocation before something else appears. All right. So let me find that. We all know the great invocation, of course. Let's see if I can... okay. There it is. And now, and there it is. All right, friends. Well, we've been probing quite a bit tonight. And look, it's just a new way of thinking. Or should we say, a way of thinking to which we have not given a lot of practice, not yet. And we can, I've often had an exercise where I say, hold up two things or in your imagination and find the essence to be the same. But when I'm dealing with pure reason, I would do it differently. I would say, hold up two things. Here's a watch, here's a pitch pipe. and find the connection between them, or several connections between them. What can we say that links one to another and somehow helps explain one to the other and vice versa? That's different than looking for essence. All right, here we go. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Okay, friends, thank you. We'll get this to you as soon as we can. Tomorrow morning, we continue with the soul of the nations. It'll be a broadcast. And then on Sunday, also a broadcast attracting financial resources for hierarchical work. So I'll stop the recording and Michael will phase us out. I appreciate your presence. Lots of love, many blessings to all of you. And here we go.